on the First Time Storytelling broadcast. My guest is Chris Kim. Chris is the host of Faces and Aces. It's a Las Vegas podcast. He enjoys exploring the city for new experiences, my kind of guy, and great food. Definitely my kind of guy. So, Chris is here to share the story of the first time he picked up a hitchhiker on his way to Las Vegas. So, welcome to the broadcast, Chris.
And thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be on your show.
All right, so let's do this. Let's get into your story.
Okay.
What year was it that this happened, and where were you driving from? And then let's get into this. Bring us to your experience.
Boy, so this was back in, I would say, 2016. And my first time experience of picking up a hitchhiker, although I have to add this to the story. I thought about this, and this was not the first time I actually drove a stranger in my car. The first time that happened, I was at a grocery store and I was leaving, and when I came out to my car, some old woman had climbed into the back of my car and told me to take her to the nursing home. And so I obliged. And so that technically was the first time. And she wasn't hitchhiking the traditional way with her thumb out and all of that, but I think technically that may have been my first time. But this is my first time willingly pulling over on the side of the road.
Second. Let's go back to this other story. Was your car just unlocked and she got into it?
Well, you know, with the key fob, when you hit unlock, all the doors open.
Yeah.
And this is actually kind of quaint because within the Korean community, I was in, an area of town that had, where a lot of Korean people live. And she was an older woman, and, Korean culture, you're taught to respect older people. And, she just, going along with those rules, she just said, here's a guy who's going somewhere. I'm going to climb into the back of his car and have me take where I need to go. So of course I obliged. I had to. She's older than me. It's something you just have to do.
Oh, wow. Obviously this had worked for her in the past, but that's incredible. Risky on her. It seems more risky on her side of the equation. All right. But okay, so let's get to this one. It's 2016, and you're on your way to Vegas.
Yeah, it's 2016. Now, typically when I go to Vegas, I will drive to Vegas. I live in Los Angeles, and the drive takes anywhere between 3.5 to 7-8 hours, depending on traffic. That's the killer right there, the traffic. And so what I will usually do is leave LA about 4:30 in the morning and beat morning rush hour. The goal is to get outside of LA by the time rush hour starts. Yeah. So if you could get that 1 hour jump on traffic, then you're golden the rest of the way. And so driving out to Vegas, it's basically a lot of, you have LA, a couple of small towns in between, and then a ton of desert, mountains, and nothingness. That's basically the trip. One of the small towns in between is a city called Barstow. And usually that's about an hour and a half, 45 minutes outside of Los Angeles. And I will stop there to pick up some breakfast to eat while I drive. So I did my regular stop, pull off at Barstow, do a little drive through at Burger King, where they have, at the time they had these little, breakfast sandwiches, 2 for $2, great bargain. And so I pick up a couple of those. And as I'm getting back onto the on-ramp, which is a big, long stretch, I see someone off on the shoulder hitchhiking. And, to ramp up to get to freeway speed, you have roughly 5-6 seconds before you get there. And so within those 5-6 seconds, I have to make a quick decision. And here are some of the things that were running through my mind as I was pulling onto the on-ramp. It was going to be a real hot day. It was going to be over 100 degrees. And there's a dude standing there with his thumb out. And as I'm looking at the dude, he's got his backpack on. He's got a ton of sticks. He's got his big, giant walking stick, a bunch of sticks. And on the ground next to those sticks is a box with holes in it. And I stop and look, oh man, there's an animal in that box. And it's going to be over 100 degrees, and that's not going to be good. And this poor guy, and And how was he hitchhiking from Barstow? He's like, these are the things going to my head. He's like a good hour and a half outside of LA with a big stretch of nothing. How did he get here? And so just when I pass him, I decide, okay, I got to let this guy in my car, if anything for the animal. And so I slow down, pull over, throw it in reverse on the shoulder and back up to him. And I say, where are you headed, man? And he tells me I'm headed to Henderson. And, I have me, my cat, all this stuff. And we just need a trip to Henderson. I'm going home to see my parents. And this is a younger guy, probably in his early 20s, kind of bohemian looking. He's got the dreads going, barefoot. And I'm like, all right, man. Okay, get in. And so I get out of the car, I open up the back, we're putting all that stuff in there. I'm like, what's in the box? He's like, it's a cat. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm allergic to cats, so we're gonna put it in the back seat, roll down the windows, we should be fine. So we're loading all the stuff in, and his walking stick goes in the back, and he gets in the front with me with his backpack, puts his backpack at his feet, and when he puts his backpack at his feet, I notice he's got like 2 more sticks that I didn't see before, and they're sharpened to a point. So basically he's climbing into my front seat with a weapon. And I didn't catch this until after I'm like starting to drive off. And so I'm like thinking, all right, okay. He's got like 2 sharp sticks.
Ultimately,
yeah.
He's got stakes.
Yeah, basically he's got stakes. And so I get up to freeway speed because I figured that's the smart move. It's not smart to stab a guy while he's doing 65, 70. So I get up to speed, and I remember I had those Burger King sandwiches. I'm like, hey, man, are you hungry? Have you eaten yet this morning? And he's like, no, I'm super hungry. I'm like, okay, tell you what, you could have one of these sandwiches, but you'd be doing me a huge favor if you just chuck those 2 sharp sticks into the way back, which again, he obliged. He was cool with it. He was grateful to get the ride. So we're driving. And so, I started, we got a good 3-hour trip ahead of us. So I started digging into the details of his life. And I'm saying, so what are you doing? How first of all, how'd you end up out here? He's like, well, I was at a party last night, and I was partying with a group of girls, and we suddenly decided to go to Vegas. And I caught a ride with them, and we pulled over in Barstow to use the restroom. And when I came out, they left. I went, I'm sorry, man. Like, well then what are you doing? Like, you're just you got your backpack. Like, what's your story? And he explained his story was basically, he's kind of like Kane and Kung Fu. He just wanders the earth. He's an artist, and he just goes from town to town creating art. And this was the time he just felt like it was time to go home and rest for a little bit before he embarked back out onto the earth and created more art. And so it was just this very sweet, kind, good-natured guy that I lucked out on picking up.
What kind of art?
Street art. Like he had like pastels with him. He had chalk with him. I assume that, when he got his hands on some spray paint, he would do some graffiti, but basically he was just like an artist that traveled the earth to wherever suited him. I thought, wow, that's adventurous. That's really cool. Yeah. And so we just talked, I learned a little bit about what it's like to, live on the street. He explained some things that I wasn't aware of. I asked him, how do you eat? Where do you get food? He's like, you know what, man, for a homeless person, honestly, food is not a problem. We have so much food in this country that just gets thrown out. It's very easy for a homeless person to find food somewhere. And I thought, wow, okay, that's interesting. I'm going to file that away in my, mental note. Not to say don't feed homeless people. That's not the message.
Yeah, but he found, because people do throw away perfectly good food. That's just not good for them, but
right.
it's good enough for somebody who's just hungry and they'll take it. Again, never had the experience. So I'm just kind of guessing here.
Right. Yeah. So, essentially it was just a very pleasant drive for the rest of the way. I took him all the way to Henderson, where he wanted to get dropped off at a specific Walmart that was within walking distance of his parents' house, I presume. And, we shook hands, parted ways, and it was nice, but it's kind of funny because most of the stories that I've heard on your show are the type of stories where it's like, wow, it's the first time I've driven a race car Ferrari. This is the first, go try that. Go try some cool stuff. My story comes with, don't ever pick up hitchhikers because you don't know what you're going to get.
But I actually think it's a great story that would inspire somebody to pick up a stranger. I was almost based on our conversation before we
Yeah.
went live. I was kind of almost expecting something different. It did end up being a, a great opportunity to get to know somebody you never would have gotten to know ever before, right? Different
Hmm.
type of person that you're probably used to
Yeah.
spending time with. And it's, it's incredible to meet people like that because to me, it is like you're so brave to do that because they don't have anything to fall back on. Like they literally trust that everything that they need is somehow is going to be provided or they'll go without and they're fine with that, right? So there's no anger to having been stranded by those girls. Kind of like that's just a part of their story, part of their adventure. And that
Yeah.
mindset, whatever you want to say, the hippie mindset, the bohemian mindset or whatever, is incredible because they don't have fear. Like they're detached, and then they're detached from needing things. They're usually completely detached from judgment. Like if you stop and you pick me up, I appreciate that. And even if you had judged him, he probably wouldn't have cared. Like he doesn't need to explain himself to you, but he'll be willing to. Like I just think that's incredible.
I think the key deciding factor was the fact that he had an animal that he was caring for. And to me, in my mind, that said, this is somebody who values life.
Yeah.
But you never know what you're going to get. I mean, there was a good portion of the drive where I'm thinking, my wife is going to kill me. My wife is going to kill me. I'm dead. I'm a dead man. And to be honest, I didn't share this story with her until 2, 3 years later. Eventually, I did fess up. I confess. I said, "There's one secret that I'm keeping from you, and I'm going to share it with you now."
did your allergies act up during the having the cat in the car, or
Oh
you
no! Thankfully, it was fine because we left the windows down a crack. But yeah, I think
that is crazy. He was traveling with a cat that way, and yeah, that's an incredible story. Yeah, I mean, and you said you've been listening to the podcast. So in my
mm,
story about the first time I went skydiving, I talk about there's a guy that I met there before the office opened up, and he was living that way. Like he was living without having a home on purpose. He had a job, he had money, but he just wanted to have that experience. But he was so like afraid to share that with people because he didn't want to be judged for the fact that he just wanted to be on the open road. And I was like, dude, I think that's awesome. Like I was traveling at the time, but I had a car, I had money, no matter what, I would have a place to stay because I had money, I had credit card, I had that security that goes along with it
mhm.
versus really like I can say I've taken some risks, I've gone out there, but never without having like a credit card and money. So,
Yeah, I mean, there is a little bit of it's romanticized a bit in books like Into the Wild, or just the idea of being on the open road and going on the grand adventure. And there is something about that I do envy because we, as a lot of us are burdened by responsibility, and that maybe burden isn't the right word, but we do have responsibilities. But some are more adventurous and willing to throw that off and open themselves up to great, incredible experiences. This guy that I picked up was one of them, and luckily I picked up a good dude. I think
yeah.
my lucky stars. Would I do it again? I'm not sure. It would depend on the circumstances. I like to believe that there are more good people than bad in this world. However, if you just come across the one bad person, that could change your world in a completely bad way. So I don't know. There's the risk reward. You know, yeah. But on the whole, I don't know if I would recommend that people do that. That people pick people up. Um,
Yeah, and again, like I was telling you at the start of the show, when I drove across Canada, my car was so packed that I couldn't pick people up. But
mm,
I saw a lot of people, and had a seat been open, there's no doubt I would have picked somebody up. Just again to hear their story, and I've done a lot of things where my parents and the majority of people don't know just because it would drive them a little too crazy. But then again, they expect it from me. So it's
yeah,
another, it's a,
yeah.
I've told them, if I die in a very crazy kind of way, just know that I made that decision and I'm good with it.
What's kind of funny is when you think about it, companies like Uber and Lyft have normalized picking up strangers. And so maybe it isn't such a strange idea of picking up a hitchhiker.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. You can't read their reviews, but the first, when you first start driving or you first start using Uber, same thing. You don't have those review. And I remember the first time I did an Airbnb. It's one of those things now. Airbnb had been around for a few years, so again, it was more established. But that's another weird concept where I'm gonna rent a room with this dude. I'm gonna stay in his house, and it was in the Ninth Ward in New Orleans, so not, not one of the best neighborhoods in New Orleans. And I'm like, I'm doing this, right, and it ended up being a really fabulous experience. So you again, you have to be wise. You have to use your intuition. I mean, your intuition, you had, like you said, split second to make the decision. You assess the situation and you're just like, this is worth it to me. There's an animal, this person is going to be hot. I can help them. I can be there for them. You do the assessment, your gut felt comfortable with it. Now, if your gut had been like, nope, you're making a mistake, don't do it, then I'm sure you would have pressed the gas and kept on moving.
Oh, yeah. We just rolled out the window. Good luck.
Some of it is, trust your intuition, trust your gut, and
Yeah.
what it has to say to you, and it will tell you the right thing in the moment. And if you're hesitant at all, then
Yeah.
keep
I
on
mean,
moving.
yeah. Yeah. If anything, I think it's, good to have empathy, not
Yeah.
necessarily for picking up a hitchhiker, but for just random people that you see on the street or just in general, to have empathy, put yourself into their shoes and ask yourself, what would you hope that other people would do?
Even if they're not wearing shoes.
Yeah. Yeah. Put yourself into their bare feet and
Yeah, and just and be open-minded. I mean, this doesn't mean that he was going to live the rest of his life this way. This is where, if a time in his life where this is what he needed, is how he was experiencing life. And you hadn't seen his art. His art could have been extremely moving, and he's leaving it, everywhere that he happens to be. And you gotta see the beauty, the possibility, the potential in everything and everyone, and be open-minded. And who knows where he is today, 4 years later. Maybe he's still doing the same thing, and maybe he's more settled down. But people don't need to fit what society expects of everyone.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, and it's kind of interesting that you think about, Australians will go on the walkabout and they'll explore and experience. And that's kind of what this guy was doing. And I think I would do the drive about just because I want a little bit of comfort, but
Yeah, and I think we should all have one of those experiences. So, where you do detach from your norm and you go experience another way to live life, and you see how that fits for you and how it moves you, how it changes you. So,
yeah.
all right, Chris. So before we get into the first time of the lightning round, go
Okay.
ahead and share with us a little bit more about your podcast and how people can tune into it.
Well, my podcast is called Faces and Aces Las Vegas. You can find it on pretty much any podcast player that you look for, or you can go to the website, facesandaceslv.com, as well as you could find me on Twitter at Faces and Aces LV. And the show is about um, at its heart, it's really about empathy, because I will have someone on who will tell a fun story about Vegas, a tourist who went to Vegas and had a really good time, or they'll share some interesting story from Vegas. Based on one element of their story, I will then go to Vegas and try to interview someone who could share the other side of that story. So I had someone who visited a strip club once. And so for the pairing interview, I talked to a dancer from a strip club. And so I want to give both visitors and tourists the perspective of, oh, here's where the other side is coming from.
Ah, that is such a cool concept. Such an awesome show. So people definitely need to tune in. And Las Vegas is full of very interesting people. So probably the only other city that competes with it is a city that is near and dear to my heart as well, and that's New Orleans. New Orleans
Yeah.
has all kinds of characters, but so does Las Vegas. And so, yeah, and how you see things from one side of the fence as a tourist versus, the experience provider on the other side and what their lives are like in the city is different. And Las Vegas has so much more to offer than what people do see. And it's been amazing living here, even though it's been short lived how much I've been able to enjoy the city because it got shut down pretty quickly. but
Right. Yeah, you kind of closed down the city.
yeah, no, it wasn't my fault.
It's amusing. I was listening to some of the back catalog of your show, and towards, I think it was the New Year's episode, you were saying, "Wow, it's 2020! Can't wait to see what happens." Oh, podcast. Our pasts
Yeah.
come back to haunt us.
Well, I had quite the list. I'm not gonna lie. I had quite the list of experiences I was planning on having in Las Vegas. That now it is September, and yeah, they haven't happened. So some of those places that opened back up, I have to say, but I do not believe in taking high risks with what's happening with the pandemic. And although I am impressed with our governor and with the way things have been handled in the city for being a city of tourists, and people are still traveling here from everywhere.
Mhm.
And the way that the numbers and the testing is happening, it's impressive that the numbers stay as low as they have. We've been a red zone, but because of the increase, but we were still just a few thousand. And now I track it every day. I think, yesterday was 200 new cases. So we keep it pretty, I'd like to be 0 new cases so I can start wandering around, but we keep it pretty low. But
Yeah.
then the heat came and I was like, well, forget coronavirus. I'm not going out there. It's too hot.
Right. Right. But your city does face that huge challenge of you have a lot of tourists coming in and you don't know if they're contagious or not. But I mean, you know, I've been twice during the pandemic. I
Have
just,
you?
yeah, yeah. And I pretty much, followed the guidelines, wore my mask, kept a good distance from people, made sure to wash my hand, all the things that they tell you to do. And I had a great time because Vegas is a city of experiences. I mean, no matter what your interest is you can find something to do there. And right now, because of most of the things are locked down, I'm starting to explore off the strip and outdoor activities, which is something that I had always wanted to do. And this is the perfect opportunity to do it, you
Oh
know?
yeah, absolutely. Get in the dune buggy and get out there, and the hiking
Yep.
around here is incredible.
Hmm.
If you're and that's one of the things people are. I had visited Vegas probably half a dozen times before I made the decision to move here. And when I came back right before I moved, I came from my sister's wedding, and I started looking around. I'm like, I had never noticed that Las Vegas is surrounded by mountains. Like that had never registered before of all the times that I'd been here. And I drove to Vegas from 29 Palms. So I had seen the mountains, but they never registered because they didn't have the high importance that they have for me now.
Hmm.
And the mountain biking out here. So now that the weather is cooling off, I'm getting connected to the mountain biking groups out here to start going out there and doing the mountain biking. Yeah, so I do some hiking just locally around my house. The other day I ran into I was coming down the trail and coming the other way. It was like a coyote, and he was in no hurry to get off the trail. And I'm like, okay, so
Yeah, yeah.
I grabbed a couple of rocks, and then kind of waited, and it finally like walked by, and
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I encountered a bear the same way once. I was a lot more scared of the bear than the coyote. I figured a couple of rocks it would move out of the way, but
Yeah. Wow.
yeah. So it is a very fascinating place, and if you're into rock climbing, you
Mm.
know,
Oh yeah, there's a lot
Alex,
of so much
what does
outdoor
that say?
activities.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
available here.
hiking. There are forests out there. You can go kayaking out on Lake Mead. Yeah, there's just so much to do outside of what the stereotypical Vegas thing is of, eat, drink, gamble. So much
Yep.
more to do. And so right now, this is the best time to do it because, you don't really want to be indoors. And now that it's finally starting to cool down just a little bit in Vegas, you can actually go enjoy some of those outdoor activities.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the it's starting to be one of the best times to come to Vegas for
Yeah.
sure. So, yeah. All right. So, let's get into the first time a lightning round.
All
So,
right.
the way it works is I'm going to ask Chris 10 first time options. If it's something that he's done before, he's going to say up. So, it's similar to if he was on the 365 First Challenge app. Something never done, not interested, it's left. Something never done, would like to do, then we go right. All
All
right,
right.
I'm ready.
I am ready.
All right, so I had to start with a Las Vegas gambling theme one. So play Baccarat.
I have not played Baccarat yet. I'm going to swipe right on that one because I want to do and try everything at least once. I might find that I love Baccarat and I have the greatest system to beat the game. I won't know until I try. So even though
Awesome.
mathematically that's highly unlikely, but still I got to try.
You gotta try it. Yeah,
Yeah.
you absolutely that's the right mindset, my kind of guy. Yeah, that was something that well still on my list is I want to take a gambling class. So like let me
Yeah.
learn how to play all these games and then I will try them all. But I
Right.
have quite a few on my list that I've never tried before.
Plus it just sounds so cool in an old school James Bond kind of way.
Yeah.
Right?
And the table is a little bit more complex, when you can play something that's not like very direct, where people are like, "Ooh, how do you play that?" Well, let me teach
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. I might have to dress up in a tuxedo just when I go play, just to make it
Definitely.
super cool.
You have to take a picture.
Yeah.
All right, do a jigsaw puzzle.
I have done a jigsaw puzzle, and I I have a weird irrational hate for jigsaw puzzles.
You know what? Sometimes I'll see it first, and I don't know why I'm putting on the list. I just know it has to go on the list. So there's a story. Go ahead.
No, it's just there's the pragmatic side of me that says, okay, look, I have the picture on the box. I know what this is supposed to look like when it's done. So what's the point of putting it together? I would save so much time if I just hung up the box and just looked at the box. And putting it together, there's not really that much. It doesn't require intelligence. It just takes persistence. If you put every piece together, eventually you're going to find two that go together. And it just takes so much time to do. It doesn't require skill. It just takes um, time. Yeah, and I don't have time for that. So,
All
but,
right.
but that's for me. That's just for me. Some people love jigsaw puzzles, and you have added more for you. I'm leaving a bunch of them for you to do.
You have thought this through. You have thought your love hate of jigsaw or your thoughts on jigsaw puzzles. I have to say I somewhat share in that mindset. At the same time, I and you're right, but you can get faster at it, right? Recognizing how shape fit together, very good for your
Right.
brain because the applicate how that's applicable to other things then has a lot of benefits. And my sister loves, she'll do 500,000 pieces puzzles, and then she loves Legos. So for her, putting things together, and you
Mhm.
can see on how she sees the world, how she does things, that those particular skills always come to the surface.
Yeah.
And so I'm always like, okay, I need to clear out the table, get a like I think the last time I did a jigsaw puzzle was like a kid. Like I don't think I've ever done like 100-piece jigsaw puzzle, like anything that's actually worthy of this was a challenge.
Yeah, yeah. And just to add to it, I am talking in jest. But they will recommend that people with early stages of Alzheimer do jigsaw puzzles to keep their brain active. So there is value to just jigsaw puzzles. I didn't mean to come down so hard. I was
Oh
kidding around
no,
to some extent.
totally. No,
Yeah.
and again, I relate because you're like, well, I know what this is going to look like. So what's the point? What is the point of doing it? All right. So, next one, eat Brazilian cuisine.
I have. I have
Yeah.
had Brazilian cuisine. It's delicious. Yeah,
All
we have
right.
a couple of great Brazilian places out here in LA. Now, I can't say that I make it a regular, but every time I go, I'm of the mind of why don't I come here more often?
This is delish. I should be
Yeah,
here more.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. So we're swiping up. Invest in a retirement plan.
I would swipe up with that one as well.
Swipe up
You
that
gotta,
one.
yep, you gotta prepare for the future. you don't know when a pandemic is coming, or for that matter, you got to get ready for the golden years, and you want it to be fun, you know?
Yeah. You
Yeah.
want to be financially set to enjoy it.
Yep.
Okay, learn a second language.
That's swiping right. That's something that I really want to do. And it's, I kind of, I'm not bilingual, but I do comprehend Korean fairly well, and I comprehend Spanish fairly well, but I can't really speak either. So those are two things that I probably would like to get on. You know what, man? I should listen to those. Sorry, I'm not listening to podcasts anymore. I'm going to be listening to Spanish tapes.
Well, I mean, that getting if you can comprehend it, you start listening to it, I will definitely make speaking it a lot easier because it's the pronunciation. You'll be more used to it. And then it's getting over the fear if that's a
That's
factor
it.
of just going out there and speaking it.
That's exactly it. It's the not wanting to look embarrassed when you go out and you're going to say things wrong, or someone's going to make fun of you for saying things wrong. But typically, whenever someone speaks in another language, the person listening is usually very encouraging because they understand they're learning. But there is that fear, and
Uh,
ultimately, that's what holds a lot of us back from doing some really cool things. So yeah, maybe I should start listening and practicing a bit.
all right. Sounds like you have an actionable item.
Yeah, I'm gonna write that one down. Hold on, Spanish.
All right. Next one is play the French horn.
um, I've never done it. I'm trying to decide if I'm going to swipe left or right on that one. Um, um, I'm going to swipe right because why not? That sounds like fun.
At least give it a try, right?
Yeah, if anything, I could have a good time annoying the hell out of some people by trying. So take it to a sporting event, and just yeah, I think I'd give that a try.
All right, awesome. Go apple picking.
I've been apple picking.
Do you
And
remember
it's
your first time?
yeah, I was a kid, and my family went apple picking, and we also went cherry picking. And at the time, I didn't really understand what the enjoyment was. I wasn't sure if we were doing it because we were poor or if this was entertainment. um, I yeah, I've been. I don't know, man. That sounds like labor, doesn't it?
It's interesting. I had this conversation with another guest about because it is interesting as as a parent you'll bring your kid to do something,
Hmm.
but if you don't explain to them like the value of doing that, they might be like, you're right, you're confused. You're like, are we doing this because we can't afford to buy an apple? And you're putting me to work? This is supposed to be fun?
Yeah,
Confused.
yeah. You're just like, are we getting paid for this? Are we like? I could see a lovely afternoon of doing it. I think, okay, yeah, I think I'd swipe right on. Well, I've
Yeah,
done it, but
you've done it, so
I
it's
think I'd
up,
do
but
it again.
you do it again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think
So
so.
but yeah, but for every parent that's listening, it's really great you taking your kids out to do these things that as adult we enjoy. You might want to explain to them why why they're going to enjoy it, and then because there are many things that you do as an adult, and one of the guests we were talking about canoeing, so he went
Mhm.
canoeing as a kid and he found it boring. He was just like it sucked. Then when he went back, when
Yeah,
he was older, he's like, oh, this is relaxing, this is nice, this is good exercise. But as a
yeah,
kid, it was like, this sucked, this is boring, why am I here?
yeah. I think as an adult, if I were to go apple picking, I would definitely value the connection to the earth and the source of where your nourishment comes from. You think of it in different ways as an adult. And so, yeah, the more I'm going to write that one down too. Apple picking,
Yeah.
that's great. Apple, no, I mean, I'm aware that all of this will be available on the podcast. I can just go
Yeah.
back and re-listen.
Listen, yeah. But yeah, again, it's just an example, just a thing as a parent. If you do explain to your child why you're doing it, then they can process it and perhaps have that appreciation, or at least
Yeah,
when they're older, they'll have the understanding. Although
yeah.
I think now the places make it more kid friendly to where there's other activities and they can make apple juice and get like actually engaged more with what they're doing. I
Right.
know when I was a kid, yeah, it was just you're just picking the fruit and you're like, yeah, this feels like child labor.
Yeah, yeah. I'm out
Okay.
here picking stuff that I don't really want to eat as a kid, you know. Now, if we went candy picking, that would be totally fun. I'd be so down for that.
All right, next one. Go to the spa.
I've been to a spa. Are we talking about just getting like a nice back rub, or are we talking about soaking in a tub with a bunch of strangers?
Both. Although I sometimes I'll ask about a specific type of massage, but this is going to a spa, so your the sauna, the hot tub, the whole spa experience.
You know what? I will. I'm going to tweak this one just a little bit and say I've never been to a Korean spa, which I hear is
Oh.
all the rage. And they also beat the hell out of you in a Korean spa. Have you been?
No, not specifically the Korean spa where
Oh yeah.
I
Apparently
have
they.
paid for beatings, but not the specific kind.
Yeah, the Korean spa is like this total thing where they have like they have the typical things like the sauna, the hot tub, and things like that. But they also have like the hot clay bead room where the whole room is filled with hot clay beads that apparently you lay in. It's supposed to be very comfortable, and also the whole beading thing where they stimulate the skin by beating on you with things, and or they rub your skin so like to get into the pores and get like all the dirt out. And I've never been. um I'm gonna swipe right and be like, why not, and say
All
why
right,
not.
we're both adding it to our list. Korean spa.
Yeah, yeah,
All
yeah.
right,
Okay, I'll do that.
next one, ice skating.
Ice skating is fantastic. I wish I did it more, but I live in Los Angeles, and so there's not really many ice
Ice
skating
skating
options
rink.
for me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but that's an up. You have done it before.
yeah.
Fly in a helicopter.
No, I haven't, and I'm gonna hard swipe right on this one because I have a fear of flying. And prior to the pandemic, back in November, December, which by the way is the reason why I drive to Vegas. I don't like to fly. Um, but I want to get over that fear. So back in November, December, I was taking flights to Vegas just to grow more comfortable with it. Helicopter, it being a very small enclosed space, I would probably freak out, but that's why I think I want to do it.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
If you're afraid of doing it, that is a reason to do it.
absolutely.
Put yourself through it. So once you do the helicopter, we'll put you in a hot air balloon. Now it's completely open and you're just in a little basket.
Oh man. um, okay. Okay. All right. I'll do that one too. I'll give that one a shot. Why not?
Man, I love it, Chris. I love your openness. Okay, so last one, which is a weird one. I don't know why I put this one ended on, but anyways, now that you're flying more, ever had your luggage lost?
No, I don't believe I have, and that's typically because I'll do a carry on.
Yeah. Okay, we'll swipe left on that one. It's a good thing it's never happened. Hopefully, it will never happen to you.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. I've been lucky, then knock on wood or whatnot. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so then the final question is, how have you been making the best out of the current situation with the pandemic?
Um, I have been trying to fill the holes with productive things that I can, once completed, I can sit back and gain a little bit of self-esteem and happiness and joy from. I just figured out I started cooking more.
Hmm.
I had always done simple meals, but there are a ton of YouTube videos on how to step it up a little bit, and so I've been watching some of those, and that kind of led me to, boy, I think I'd like to have some fresh herbs, and so I started growing basil. Just And so now I have like a basil garden, which I guess you could see over my shoulder
Yeah.
over there. So I've been growing indoor basil, and just the other day was looking at them thinking, wow, these were not good 2 weeks ago and they've bounced back, and I felt a little bit of accomplishment in nursing that back. And so basically that's kind of been my way of dealing with the pandemic, and trying to find things that I've accomplished during this weird time, and I could sit back and say, look, I did this, that makes me happy. um and yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, and
Learning
it,
new things. Like I did this, I accomplished this, I learned this, I have this new skill. Like I did not waste I did not waste this time. And it, and it's all things that are making you happy.
yeah.
And for anyone and everyone who's listening, those things do make you happy. They don't just make Chris happy. They make human beings, us, happy to do those things. We are programmed for that. It releases the good chemicals. It's the good stuff that makes us feel good because we are creating, we are learning, and we are engaged with different things. And that's rewarding to us. Sitting on the couch, vegging, and doing nothing is not rewarding. And that does bring you more likely to a place of being down and depressed.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's kind of key to point out these aren't huge monumental things. I mean, I've also been exercising a little bit more and all the little things that I've been meaning to get around to, but now I suddenly have the time to get around to it. And they don't have to be huge things like, look, I built this house. That's fantastic if you did. That's awesome. That's super awesome, actually. But it could be just little things that daily bring you joy and carry you past. Because, there's been, I think a lot of us are going through this weird funk, and it's a matter of finding that little thing to hold on to, saying, this morning I'm going to look at, hey, look at this. This makes me happy, and let that carry you through the day and just do that daily. At least that's what I've been doing. And thankfully, I've been, for the most part, happy for most of this weird
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. And it's the mindset. But you did go into it with the mindset because you have the mindset of trying new things. You're like, okay, I'm nothing to lose to try this. I'm just gonna try. I'm just gonna give it a go. I'm afraid of this, so I am gonna do it. Like that. That is the mindset I am hoping to help others develop because of how well it serves us to be happier, more satisfied human beings.
But ultimately, that is the joy of listening to your podcast, giving people the motivation to push forward to do things. Because, like you were saying before, you could sit at home, watch Netflix, and to some extent, yeah, there is some comfort in that. However, that comfort becomes complacency, and then that it's very easy to slip from complacency into depression. However, if you're constantly seeking new experiences, that keeps the brain stimulated, excited. That's ultimately. So, I mean, that's why I enjoyed listening to your show. Just in those conversations that we've had, I've discovered several new things that I would like to go try. And so I think, kudos to you for coming up with a brilliant idea for a show and for being out, putting yourself out there to motivate people. That's
Oh,
fantastic.
thank you, Chris. And next time you're in Las Vegas, let's find out what's on that list that we can do together, or we'll find, I can go take the helicopter ride with you, so that you're not by yourself, or we can do something else that you've never done before and that I've never done before.
Oh, I
And
have it figured out already. When I come to Vegas, we're going to go out for tea.
for tea.
Yeah, because you were saying, maybe this is a good 6 months ago. You were saying you were working on giving up coffee, and you
Oh,
were
I
exploring to
have
do
I have
tea.
managed I have managed I, I have managed that. Actually,
Yep.
funny you're bringing this up. So yeah, so in my first time the Viome test, I talked about I had to give up coffee for tea. So I gave up coffee for tea, and I was doing good for a couple of months. I'm just drinking tea. And then I started working on a project, long hours, and coffee just has more of a punch. So I started drinking some coffee again, and it
Mhm.
started tearing up my stomach. Like it was
Mm.
very clear, like that test that I took was spot on. Coffee does not do me any good. So now I still I'm not a perfect human, even though I know coffee is literally going to be bad for me. It's going to upset my stomach. There's a couple times a week where I'll still sometimes end up
Yeah.
having coffee. So, um, yeah, but it's definitely tea that's in my cup, which is why the cup gets so dark. Tea does that to your coffee cups. But
Yeah.
yeah, so we'll have to think of something else because I've also been in an official tea ceremony in Japan. So I've had the full
Oh,
on tea experience. Yeah.
oh, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that was very incredible. The Japanese woman had the full kimono on, and yeah, it was such a great experience many years ago, but it was super awesome.
Because I do know that they do one of the formal high teas in Vegas over at the Waldorf Astoria.
Oh,
However, there is a place off the strip that someone was just telling me about where they do a more informal and kind of like a, you know how you could get a flight of beer, you can get a flight of teas, and they'll do a black, a green, and oolong, just a variety that you can sample and taste. And so I thought, ooh, I'd like to try that. And so I haven't done that one yet, so maybe that could be our first time experience in Vegas.
I can. Yes, I can go explore some more teas to add to my to add to my list.
Yeah.
I had one of some his name is Michael. He's been following me for good God a couple decades now. He was back in the days when I was doing Why Go Solo, and he sent me a tea diffuser so I could make official tea as I was progressing in my world of tea.
Oh,
So
property.
property,
Yeah.
yes. All right, Chris. Well, we'll figure it out. But it's been a
Yeah.
pleasure having you on. Thank you for coming on and sharing your story.
Oh, thank you for having me on, Ann. It was great to meet you.